Well, if you have learned anything about 2026, it is not business as usual. And as we have a new beginning, an eclipse in Aquarius to spark off a Lunar New Year, the fire horse, it's going to be our invitation to change and shift our perspective to move into a new direction. And so instead of asking for exactly what you want, like a prediction or a goal, ask instead, what are you open to? Welcome back, Star Powered family. And if you're new here, aloha and welcome. I'm Leslie Tagorda, Hawaii-born astrologer, author of the upcoming book, Astrology for Changemakers, coming out in September 2026, and creator of the Astrobrand method. I light the path for visionaries, healers, and changemakers like you to attune to your strengths, purpose, and power written in your stars. If astrology, leadership, and real change through an uncolonized lens are your jam, click subscribe and let's dive in. All right, my friends, before we dive into our first eclipse in the Aquarius and Leo axes, I wanted to share a special announcement that this is actually a little bit of a special episode. This episode, as it comes out before February 14th, which actually happens to be my birthday, it is also the birthday of this podcast. Back in 2020, this podcast started under the name The Savvy Luminary. And, I forgot to get Jeff to check in on our metrics to see exactly how many episodes we have. But somewhere in the middle of The Savvy Luminary, I changed the name of the podcast to Star Powered, which you know now. And I have probably over 300 episodes all together. Some of them are YouTube. Some of them are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get to listen to your podcasts. The last couple of years have been a little bit spotty. In the very beginning, I was actually dropping 2 episodes a week, which was super awesome because I had this giant global listenership. I was teaching and sharing astrology and having a grand old time. But as you can imagine, week after week, 2 episodes a week turned into a really heavy slog. And then life took over. I had my Chiron return. And over the last year, my energy has really flickered. And so I'm feeling the spark come back to commit to this podcast, but in a different way. And what I mean in a different way is that I'm really honoring my energy and my capacity where it is now, so different than it was 6 years ago. Life was so different 6 years ago. And so if this podcast has in any way, or if you watch this on YouTube, has in any way taught you, inspired you, touched your heart somehow, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be in your ears, be in your hearts, and sharing the thing that I love the most, astrology for changemakers. All right, my friends, let's get into the Lunar New Year. And so in this powerful episode, I want to explain how Aquarius is your power to innovate, to make a choice, to see things from a new angle that only you can see, and to make a change in a different direction based on how you see things. We're going to see what the Lunar New Year means on an Aquarius New Moon Eclipse, and find out exactly how eclipses happen, what eclipses mean for you and what they are inviting you into, and how you can use the power of Aquarius to innovate in your change-making work. Of course, it wouldn't be a new moon episode without me sharing how you can use this Aquarius eclipse through the different houses to open up to a new vision. Now, the Lunar New Year, if you didn't already know, always happens on the Aquarius new moon. We get these fits and starts of New Year's. We have our Gregorian calendar New Year that happens on January 1st. Then we get this wonderful Lunar New Year. So we get the Sun New Year, we get the Lunar New Year. Actually, the Gregorian calendar New Year is not the Sun New Year because we're in the middle of where the sun is at its southernmost point in Capricorn. So we have our Gregorian calendar New Year, our Lunar New Year, and then shortly after in late March, when the sun moves into Aries season, we get our solar new year, also known as our astrological new year. And as the light gains and expands with longer days in the northern hemisphere, and sorry, southern hemisphere, but we are the way that the earth is tilted and the way that the sun is moving north and south. Unfortunately, everything leans towards the experiences of the northern hemisphere. And as our light expands here, as our days get longer in the northern hemisphere, of course, we feel like we are coming more alive. And so if you haven't really felt like getting things started yet with your goals and your intention setting, you're working simply with Mother Nature, because we are not yet at the solar new year of the Aries ingress. Now, we get this little pause with our Lunar New Year. And of course, being an Aquarius and the Lunar New Year always happening on the Aquarius New Moon, when the sun and the moon meet in Aquarius, all across Asia, we celebrate a new beginning. And this year, the Lunar New Year is in the year of the fire horse. Now, you've been noticing that the end of the year before starting the fire horse, we're at the tail end of that, was it wood snake? Yeah, the wood snake year. Lots of molting, lots of transformation, lots of endings. As I'm recording this a week before the 17th, Saturn's still at the tail end of Pisces, still at the tail end of the wood snake, still at the tail end of all of these different things. Obviously, we are feeling it individually, collectively. There's nothing usual. And that's because as we move into the future, this Aquarius new moon and this fire horse is about big change. Now, sometimes we might not feel like we can make a lot of big changes in our lives, whether we're stuck in a job that we need to have to pay the bills, whether we're stuck in a house that we need to stay at because we can't move for whatever reason. Wherever you feel like you can't move, sometimes what you simply need is a change of perspective. I pull cards before every episode. I write my notes. My process is to write my notes and think about all the things that I want to talk about, how eclipses happen, what eclipses mean, all these things. And then I pull some cards in terms of what does my audience really need to hear about this Aquarius new moon eclipse? The card that I got, again, I'm using the Radiant Wilds Atlas by Nat Gersberger. And the card that I pulled, I kid you not, is the Hanged One. And the Hanged One is, related to the Tarot, the Fool. And obviously, when I got this, I was like, oh my gosh, it is so Aquarian. It's absolutely about change. What this card says about the Hanged One is, I pause to flip my perspective and continue with fresh eyes. The Hanged One asks you to switch things up. If your world feels like it's not turning, it may be an issue of perspective. We all tend to get wrapped up in the way we see life. We make up firm truths about what we are like, what others are like, how they are likely to behave, or how we are likely to behave. And we readily lock ourselves into our comfy stances where we never run the risk of hanging upside down. We don't even consider a different angle. It appears to be easier this way, but this outlook impedes our growth. Eventually, stagnancy will be so painful that we are forced to adjust. The Hanged One encourages to recognize the need to pivot before you're forced by external circumstances. Acknowledge that you're feeling static first. You can only do so by observing yourself, your body, your actions, and your thoughts as if you are watching someone else. With newfound awareness, you stand in front of a choice to make change. You may find that by even ever so slightly adjusting your position, you can release toxicity. Let go of what's holding you back. Doing so means creating space for expansion and inviting new pulsations into your life. Explore a direction you haven't taken before. You'll be rewarded. Now, I find that write-up so appropriate for this eclipse energy that we are in, because you already know that an eclipse is an energy where we take quantum leaps, meaning we stop taking the step-by-step logical A, B, C, D, and then all of a sudden we go from A to rainbow. We just jump and shift places. And when we think about things, like if you ever practice yoga or if you ever do like any types of inversions, sometimes when you're looking up at the ceiling, all of a sudden something shifts in your mind. It's not logical, it's not linear, and all of a sudden you have this change. And how right on the nose is that for Aquarius? Now, when we look at the Lunar New Year, the fire horse, the wild horse, the horse that wants freedom. Notice anything? Sounds pretty Aquarian to me. This horse is fueled by passion. It has a ton of momentum and energy, but it needs to really focus on not burning out, by not overdoing things. And when you think about a horse in the wild or a horse in a stable, a horse isn't an animal that will ever burn itself out. A horse, when it's left in its like natural devices, is very sensitive. It has inner strength and inner power. It is highly intuitive. And I've never personally watched horses, but I love to watch on Instagram the people that work with horses. And horses instantly know whether or not you are a safe person to be with. They have that intuitive sense, and that the more certain, the more quiet, the more tuned into your own inner power, the more that your intention is golden, that horse will learn to trust you. And so the fire horse is asking us to make giant, bold changes, to shake up patterns and inspire new growth. So Aquarian, which coincidentally sounds just like equestrian. The last time we had a fire horse was 60 years ago. And if 60 years, rings a bell to other cosmic cycles, it's similar to a Saturn cycle. But the last year that we had a fire horse was 1966. In the United States, we had, the summer of love movement, the hippie movement, lots of independence, where boomers were, breaking out of conformity and, running around naked and sunny San Francisco, actually just a few blocks from where I live. I live in the lower Haight, and all of that was happening up in the upper Haight. But Saturn actually didn't move into Aries until 1967. But those cycles are very, 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 very close. Now, eclipses. I love science and spirituality. That's probably why I, became an astrologer, because, I think I might have told you this at one time. I went to college to become an astronomy major, not knowing you could study astrology. And so I've always loved space, everything space, and studying the stars. And so when we think about an eclipse is not just the beautiful, spiritual time for us to, make big changes and shifts in our lives, but actually it's a scientific phenomenon. Eclipses happen when there is a lunation, a new moon or a full moon, within 18 degrees of the lunar nodes. Now, I find it fascinating that cultures across the world have always known about these nodes. Now, the lunar nodes, just like when you think about two waves that meet at a certain point, those points where two waves meet are called nodes. And the two waves that are meeting with the lunar nodes are the ecliptic, the path that the sun travels on the earth, as well as the moon's orbit. So the moon's orbit is one wave, the ecliptic is another wave, and they meet at these 2 points. The first node, the north node, when the sun is moving northward, and then the south node, where the sun is then moving southward. And in different cultures, lots of different cultures, not just the Indian culture, even in the Philippines, which was very close to India, so they probably had the same knowledge. They were sharing the same knowledge, just like they were sharing the same commerce, doing the trading back and forth across the Indian Ocean. They would call the north node the dragon's head and the south node the dragon's tail. So naturally, a head is where we're moving forward. A tail is where we have been coming from. So this particular Aquarius new moon happens 10 degrees away from the north node. The north node is still in Pisces. The south node is still in Virgo at the very beginning parts of Pisces and Virgo, the north node, the nodes, the lunar nodes move in retrograde. So they are 8 degrees at Pisces right now, and the new moon will be at 28 degrees of Aquarius on February 17th when they meet for that eclipse. Now, at that eclipse at 28 degrees, again, 10 degrees away from the lunar nodes, this is going to give us an annular eclipse, kind of a ring of fire. And so when we have this eclipse, it's because we have that lunation, this time a new moon within that 18 degrees, this time 10 degrees. And this is our very, very first eclipse on the Aquarius Leo axes. This is opening up for a series of eclipses over the next 19 months in Aquarius and Leo. We still have one more Virgo and one more Pisces eclipse. And so this year is a transitional year. We will also have a Leo eclipse. Now remember that eclipses happen in pairs. Sometimes they happen in triplets, like in 2020. Of course, they had triplets in 2020. But this pair, we have our Aquarius New Moon happening on the 17th. And then on March 3rd, we're going to be having a lunar eclipse in Virgo. And so eclipses, when we look at the science of the eclipses, it's just so beautiful. That's why the sun and the moon are very at the same degrees. And that's why from our perspective here in the sky, they look like they're blocking one another. The sun is being eclipsed by the moon. The moon is going in front of the sun, and we get that beautiful ring of fire. Now, on a spiritual sense, eclipses are inviting us into shifting our path, into shifting our perspective by disrupting our current trajectory, that linear trajectory, and moving and quantum leaping to another trajectory, moving paths. Now, a few weeks ago, I did an Instagram live, and it was about whether or not to set an intention or to do a ritual on an eclipse. For me, I love playing with change. Change is the only constant. Whether or not to vision, I absolutely believe that we want to vision on this potent, highly transformational energy. We want to vision because we want to let the universe know what we are open to, how we want to feel. We don't want to give them a directive. We don't want to give the universe and our co-creators a demand. No. We want to be very open because it's wild card energy that we can play in any way. Just like that wild horse, it wants freedom and no restrictions. And so instead of asking for exactly what you want, like a prediction or a goal, ask instead, what are you open to? Now, this particular eclipse is going to be happening on my natal sun. It's going to be a couple of degrees from my natal sun. Our last eclipse season 6 months ago, that eclipse happened on my chart ruler on my Mercury. Now, you already know that I had been diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Everything is healed. I had no idea. I wasn't planning on having thyroid cancer. And that eclipse moment of my chart ruler, Mercury, my throat, where I had my thyroid, half my thyroid removed, going to have the other half removed in April. When I saw that eclipse, I was like, oh, something big is going to happen. And because it's my chart ruler at my midheaven, I knew that something also big was going to happen in my business. Now, I had no idea that I was going to have to pause my business for a little while by taking off most of my classes and just focusing on, the energy that I had in recreating business. I didn't know that I was going to have an operation and take time to recover and away and, all these things. I didn't know. But now that I've been through the experience, wow. I'm so grateful that I had that experience because I didn't know how badly I needed to rest. I didn't know how badly I needed to do nothing so that something new could drop in. I didn't know how much I needed to stop business as usual so I could reinvent how I wanted to then offer my services. If I didn't have that eclipse and if I didn't have that my thyroid cancer diagnosis, I probably would still be very exhausted and not have come back to this podcast, something that brings me so much joy. And so I would have never, right, have intended to have thyroid cancer, but that thyroid cancer diagnosis was absolutely an eclipse moment. I'm not saying that if I'm going to have my natal sun eclipse at this particular Aquarius eclipse, I wouldn't want that again. And I'm not going to say that you're going to have this terrible experience, but notice that we get these massive shakeups in our lives that are ripe for quantum evolution. All the billionaires are talking about all this quantum this and quantum that, quantum AI, quantum computing, quantum wellness. Well, what the hell does that mean? It just simply means that we do not have to take linear steps to reach our destination. So for you, when you're thinking about what are you open to for your opportunities, experiences, feelings, becoming, right? That's the evolution part. You look to the house that's going to have the most impact, just like that that Pisces eclipse that eclipsed my natal Mercury 6 months ago in the 10th house. It shifted my business. This sun in the 9th house, well, my friends, I'm getting ready to publish a book. What's going to happen? 9th house is the house of publishing. And so you look to that house to understand what area of your life, your business, your leadership by house is ripe for quantum evolution. And if you have planets in aspect, especially by conjunction, like my natal Mercury or my natal sun that's coming up, what is that planetary process that's ready to evolve? And if you're an advanced astrologer, looking at that planetary process and understand that planet, right? I think of planets as processes. And so if you look at that planet and understand what planet which house it rules, so Mercury would rule the houses ruled by Virgo and Gemini. So hello, when I had that eclipse 6 months ago on my Mercury, it ruled my first house of my body and it ruled my 4th house of home. And so, yeah, my home life was interrupted. My business was interrupted. I should say disrupted because it needed to be disrupted. And my first house was just disrupted. My body was disrupted. Now, for this eclipse that we're having now, this is going to be happening on my natal sun and also Jupiter. Sun rules Leo. And so for me, Leo is in my 3rd house. My 3rd house, my opportunities for evolution in my messaging, my voice, and my self-expression. So of course, I'm going to be setting visions around the opportunities and experiences that I want to have in my 9th house, because that's where my sun natally is, but also my 3rd house because the sun is the ruler of my 3rd house. So trace back and look at your own chart and see where Aquarius of 28 degrees is, what house that contains. And I'll go through some of those rituals and invitations in a bit, but also those planets that you might have that are being aspected. Anything that's an Aquarius of 28 degrees, of air signs of 28 degrees, as well as fixed signs of 28 degrees. And so this Aquarius energy is the power to innovate. Now, innovate doesn't have to mean disrupt, being the next Uber to disrupt the way that, taxis drive, or being the next Waymo, which also is going to disrupt Uber, right? I live in San Francisco where there's a bunch of innovators and disruptors, and they want to disrupt to capitalize. I am not saying that. To innovate simply means to be different, to have a different perspective. To innovate means being comfortable with being you, being comfortable with creating belonging. Yes, Aquarius is absolutely about belonging. It's not just about Cancer. Aquarius is about being different and still belonging. And so when we think about the power to innovate in our lives and our leaderships and our business, the invitations of this eclipse are asking us, how can I do or be different to create change? How can I accept my differences and still create belonging? What am I here to change or make different by using my own perspective, my unique, different perspective? And how am I here to contribute my differences into my community as a participant of circular leadership? Because Pluto is already in Aquarius for the next 20 years, and Pluto is transforming the way that we are here to be in community. Pluto in Aquarius is asking me and you and all of us to contribute our own leadership, human-centered leadership, egalitarian leadership, community-centered, circular leadership, where leadership isn't top-down, but it's spread throughout the whole, where we are all contributing. And to contribute, we have to know what our unique, one-of-a-kind gift is. Yes, your differences. And so Pluto in Aquarius is asking you to be a leader that contributes. And the way that you be a leader and contribute as a change maker is to understand how you are open to be different, to do different, to create belonging, and to contribute your differences to the whole. All right. So finally, let's take a look at the Aquarius eclipse, your vision by house. Now, I want you to look at the house that contains Aquarius of 28 degrees and find the house that contains that degree point, because that's the area of your life and business that is open for a fresh perspective and open to massive quantum evolution. But before we get into that, this is your final chance to sign up for Vision Star Lab, which is happening on this potent eclipse day on February 17th. Yes, it is a 3-hour experience. We are going to be doing some teaching. We're going to be doing integration and workshopping together. We're going to be doing somatic exercises, and we're going to be putting together a ritual. It's going to be so rich, potent, and powerful, and all in community. And so we'll be taking a look at these eclipses, charting those points on your natal chart. We'll be looking at the transits of Saturn, Uranus, and Jupiter to see where your chart, your life, your business is ripe for expansion, mastery, and breakthrough. I hope you will join me. It will mean the world to me. I have payment plans available. If you want to do this and $111 is a little bit out of your reach, just let us know. I would rather have you there than not come because you don't yet have the funds. All right, so let's take a look at your Aquarius eclipse vision by house. So if you have Aquarius 28 degrees in the first house, you might be an Aquarius rising, and you're asking yourself, how am I open to getting things started with future forward change making? This is your invitation to do something differently and initiate through your Aquarian leadership. If you have this Aquarius eclipse in your second house, this is an invitation to understanding how do you want to be open to creating different results with people first, equitable social values. How are you creating not just money worth, but true value in your communities? If Aquarius of 28 degrees is in your third house, this is your invitation to see how you are open to expressing and communicating with eclectic and educating ideas. Yes, share your perspective, share the way that you see things, because you know what? Nobody else sees them that way, and people really want to know how you think. If Aquarius of 28 degrees is in your fourth house, this is inviting you to be open to creating belonging through freedom of expression with found family. How are you open to creating belonging and community? If Aquarius of 28 degrees is in your fifth house, this is your invitation to see how you are open to enjoying and cultivating passion projects that are social and eccentric. So how can you bring people together? How can you create community through cultivating projects that bring so much enjoyment? If Aquarius of 28 degrees is in your 6th house, this is your invitation to being open to practicing daily to build community and community wellness. So similar to the 5th house about bringing people together for passion and joy, the 6th house is about bringing people together for wellness, whether this might be a food bank share or, a clothing swap or wellness. So many things that are community based that makes your community stronger, healthier, and whole. For those of us, maybe you're Leo rising, that have Aquarius eclipse happening in your 7th house. This is your invitation to figure out how you're open to collaborating with change-making rebel geniuses. You're not supposed to be doing this alone. You're here to be partnering and committing with others who are going to see things differently, just like you. If Aquarius of 28 degrees is in your 8th house, this is your invitation to figure out how you are open to healing differences and perceive liabilities into shared power, building trust, building power together, and really creating deep healing for all. But of course, in your own way. For those of us that have this Aquarius of 28 degrees in the 9th house, like myself, our invitation is to understand how we are open to liberating our purpose and our philosophy of making change so that we can share it with the wider world. Similar to the 3rd house of expressing and communicating, this is now sharing those ideals across the globe. If you have Aquarius of 28 degrees in the 10th house, this is your invitation to discover how you're open to delivering your ultimate mission as an agent of change. You're here to shake up what you're doing and how you're delivering on your mission to create beautiful change in the world. Now, if this is in your 11th house, your invitation is to understand how you are open to changing the world with your vision of social values and human-centered equity. Similar to the 10th house, where, the 10th house is actually delivering and doing the work of your ultimate mission. The 11th house is bringing your social networks together over social values, over your shared social vision that is going to center human equity. And lastly, if you have Aquarius of 28 degrees in the 12th house, this is your invitation to vision how you are open to rehabilitating peace and justice for all. We need you to do some vast, deep rehabilitation, restoration, and healing for us all. All right, my friends. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little decadent episode of this Aquarius eclipse. Make sure you sign up for Vision Star Lab and join me in community. We're going to be doing some powerful work in a very safe container. And thank you again for being a listener here and giving me a reason to show up and record these episodes like I have been doing for the last 6 years. So thank you again. If this podcast has touched your heart, please share it with others. Please leave me a rating and review so we can reach the hearts of even more change makers like you. All right, my friends, thank you so much and have a most beautiful, blessed eclipse as you take your next step on your quantum evolution. I'll see you soon.